I think I made a huge mistake by marrying into a rich family, but it's already too late now to turn back. So I met my fiance through a mutual friend of ours. We hung out in group settings and got close to each other after a while. To be honest, I had a crush on him the whole time, but didn't really do anything about it because of many reasons. Initially, I thought he was way out of my league. I didn't want to mess up the group dynamic by making things awkward if he didn't like me back. Also, I knew that he was from this insanely rich family, well known, and I was kind of intimidated by that. So I told myself to stop dreaming and never really approached him or even told anyone about my feelings. After we had known each other for a few times and gone out with our friends, it was as if my dream came true. The mutual friend I mentioned earlier told me that my husband had told her that he thinks I'm really cute and asked her if I was seeing anyone. I was very, very single at the time, and knowing he was interested just rekindled my crush. I told her that I wasn't seeing anyone and I was interested in him, and she gave him the green signal. So that's how we started dating. I think we were both a little awkward at first, but we really opened up to each other in time. This was my first ever serious relationship. Obviously, I had dated before, but mostly just random college frat boys and the like. My fiance is incredibly well spoken, sophisticated, and surprisingly funny. I really felt like I could have a future with this man and felt lucky to be loved by him. And he was indeed an incredible partner. He has always been supportive and just lovely. We were together for 2 years and he proposed to me on our second anniversary. I was the happiest woman alive and obviously said yes. I thought I had found my fairy tale romance. Unfortunately, after what has happened, I'm just questioning our whole dynamic. His family was surprisingly lovely as well. I was afraid they wouldn't approve of me, but both his parents have been lovely to me. Only problem I've encountered is with one of his siblings. So, my fiance has an older brother and a younger sister. His brother is great and has always been nice to me, but not his sister. The problem is that my husband dated his sister's best friend for a few months and they had a bad breakup. The girl was ready to get married and start a family, but my fiance was just not looking for that at the time. That was around 4 years ago. Anyway, my husband broke up with that girl and she was heartbroken. I feel bad for her, but I mean, you can't force someone to be with you, can you? I guess my sister in law never really forgave her brother for breaking up with her best friend. To make things worse, I was the first person he dated after that breakup, and he decided to commit to me after being adamant about not wanting anything long term with that girl. A normal person would have understood that people change. Not my sister in law, though. She has been snarky to my fiance about how he could be serious with me and not with her best friend. She hasn't done anything outright mean to me, but she has always been cold and made it clear that she doesn't really like me. I was fine with that. I mean, I barely saw her as long as I had my fiance on my side. I didn't really care what others felt about me. I could have never imagined that she would try to sabotage our relationship and be the cause of the biggest fight we've ever been in. So my fiance proposed to me using this really expensive heirloom ring. It has literally been in his family for generations. The idea was that even though that was the ring he proposed to me with, my actual wedding ring, the one I'd wear every day, would be another ring because of how rare and kind of fragile that ring is. I was honestly not expecting this and felt really honored. After the proposal, I went on a trip to Vermont with my husband's family. They have family there and go pretty often, but this was the first time I tagged along. I was still wearing the heirloom ring, and we were supposed to buy my actual ring from Italy because that's where his parents got engaged as well, so it was kind of sentimental. Anyway, we went to Vermont. planning to stay there for around 2 weeks in this beautiful, cozy villa. It was my mother-in-law, father-in-law, sister-in-law, my husband, and I. My brother-in-law couldn't make it because he had to work. The trip was actually quite lovely. Apart from the obvious cold shoulder from my sister-in-law, I didn't pay much attention to her. We were going to be leaving the next day when my fiancé asked me to give him the ring because he wanted to go out to buy the wedding band in the evening. I took it off and gave it to him without a thought. That was in the morning after we had just woken up. We were going to go shopping that evening, and it was decided that he would go with his sister to buy the ring. My mother-in-law and I were supposed to go shopping while they did that. We all went out, and my mother-in-law and I came back earlier than my husband and sister-in-law. I was in the room when he entered and told me that he had got the ring. I was really happy and asked him to show it, but he said it was supposed to be a surprise. I happily agreed and asked him to give the heirloom ring back so I could wear it. He said all right and took the ring box out. Guess what? It was empty. The ring was just not there. He searched his pockets. He went to check in the car, and he called the jewelry shop to ask if he left it there. Nothing. It had just disappeared into thin air, apparently. We went to sister-in-law to ask if she had it, and she didn't. My husband said that he had the ring while coming back from the store because he took it out to compare both in the car. We thought he might have dropped it on the way back to the villa from the car, and we checked but couldn't find it. I didn't know what to do. We were both devastated. Not only was the ring very, very expensive, it also had huge sentimental value. I couldn't shake the feeling that my sister-in-law was involved somehow. I know it was killing her that I was the one who got the ring and not her best friend, but I had no proof. I did the only thing that I could think of. I called the non-emergency line, explained everything to the cops, and asked for help. I did this without telling my husband or any of his family members. The cops showed up a while later and asked if they could search the property. I explained to my fiancé that I panicked and called them. He looked annoyed but said it was all right. The cops checked the drawers in everyone's rooms and then asked if they could check our bags. My fiancé was annoyed at that point and said he didn't like how invasive the whole thing was, but I somehow convinced him to say yes. My sister-in-law was looking more and more uncomfortable and said she wasn't okay with her bags getting checked because it made her feel targeted. I put on an act saying how awful I felt about the ring and how this was all just a formality, and practically coerced her into giving in. Guess what? The ring was found in her purse. When they pulled it out, the cop gave me a look because I had told them when I called that I suspected my sister-in-law. Sister-in-law obviously went like, "Oh, Henry," my fiancé, "must have given it to me and forgotten about it." My fiancé looked mortified at that point and just agreed with her. The cops asked me if I wanted to press charges, and before I could say anything, my fiancé told them we appreciated their help, but there was no need to press charges because this was just a mistake. The cops asked me again, and I couldn't help myself and said yes. Everyone lost their shit. My fiancé asked me what was wrong with me. My father-in-law and mother-in-law told me that I was probably not thinking straight and asked me to calm down. Things turned pretty ugly, and the cops were literally standing right there. To calm things down, I told the officers that I've changed my mind and don't want to press charges. The cops have left, but things are really, really tense between everyone now, and my fiancé is not speaking to me. AITA for wanting to press charges? Update 1. We've come back home and my fiancé is still barely speaking to me. I've tried to initiate conversations about what happened, but he avoids it like anything. I hate how things have turned out, and it's all because of my sister-in-law, who hasn't apologized once, by the way. Also, Thank you guys for reassuring me that my reaction was justified. She really has been mean to me, even though I've done nothing wrong to her. Update 2. I finally had a fight with my fiancé about what happened. I tried to talk to him again and he just snapped. He told me I had embarrassed him in front of his whole family and that his sister felt humiliated. I broke down and told him that I had enough of his sister treating me like I'm not good enough for him and being awful to me. I told him I was sure that she had done it on purpose. Seeing me cry like that made my fiancé calm down. He told me he would try to speak to his sister, but I don't think she will admit to anything. Update 3. As expected, my sister-in-law denied taking the ring. She said that I'm trying to paint her as the villain and destroy the family. Things are just bad and I don't know what to do. NTA. At all. Your sister-in-law is just bitter and so childish, and your fiancé should have taken your side way earlier. I'm sorry you have to go through this, OP. NTA, the ring was literally in her bag. You should have pressed charges. Honestly, I think you should rethink the whole relationship because your fiancé should take your side in a much firmer way and take a stand. Next story. So, I'm currently 33 weeks pregnant with baby number 2. The in-laws are wanting to come stay for a few weeks when the baby's born. They did this by surprise with baby number 1. I can't stand my mother-in-law because she doesn't listen to anything anyone says. She doesn't abide by any rules or boundaries I set, including not posting my son's picture on social media. A bit on our living situation. My husband and I live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 700 square foot apartment. The bathroom is only accessible through our bedroom. At the current time, we have 2 adults, a toddler, and 2 large breed dogs in the apartment at all times, and a 3rd adult, my mom, that comes on weekends to help out around the house because things are getting more and more difficult as I get further in my pregnancy. Now, the issue is, my mother-in-law thinks that she is entitled to come stay for 4 weeks once baby number 2 is born. As in, we tell her when I go into labor, in-laws drive down with their loud, yappy dog, and they stay in our apartment for 4 weeks so they can meet the baby. They did this with baby number 1 as well, but decided to surprise us by just showing up at our apartment 2 days after I got home from the hospital. I was miserable the entire time they were here because mother-in-law has no respect for personal boundaries. I would ask for them to step out of the apartment so I could breastfeed. Mother-in-law refused. I was unable to establish a milk supply and had to resort to formula because of this. I asked her to, at the very least, knock when she had to come to the bathroom. Mother-in-law refused. I asked for them to please take their dog out so it would stop making messes in the floor. Mother-in-law refused. Then refused to clean up said mess, saying it's not her house to clean. My husband refused to stand up to her, and I was still going through recovery from birth, so I really didn't have the energy to fight with her on anything. When my husband said they wanted to do this again, I asked him to tell them they would have to get a hotel room. This resulted in me being called selfish and rude by my mother-in-law and told that I just need to suck it up because it's their grandchild and they deserve to see him when he's born. She refuses to get a hotel room, refuses to respect any boundaries I set, and refuses to wait until the baby is a few weeks or months old, because then they won't know her. Also, keep in mind that they would be sleeping on our couch the entire time, which was a major complaint of hers the first time around, since she has back problems. And her suggestion to fix this last time was that my husband and I buy her an entire mattress and bed frame so she could be comfortable. My husband, mother-in-law, and father-in-law have been making me feel like I'm the one in the wrong here because the in-laws live in Minnesota while we live in Georgia and they hardly get to see each other. Edit. To everyone saying I should go stay with mom, I can't, nor can I go anywhere else, as all I really have left is my mom, and money is too tight for me to go to a hotel or anything like that. This was an accidental pregnancy, and I didn't have any options of ending it, as I found out at 16 weeks, which is way too late to end it. My mother-in-law never acted this way until after I married my husband. He changed after the ceremony too. It was perfect before, but now it's a living hell. Now, if I try standing up for myself when they come to visit, mother-in-law runs crying to my husband saying I was rude and that I hurt her feelings. Husband doesn't do anything except tell me to just deal with it and that they'll be gone soon. You had a second child with this man? After he clearly demonstrated how little he cares for your opinion or comfort after the first was born? NTA, but don't expect anything to change. You know how this goes. Mother-in-law is a problem, but the much bigger problem is your spineless husband. He must tell his mother to back off and stick to it when she does not. It would be ultimatum time for me. No visitors at all until you feel up to it, or you and the baby will go to your mother's and stay there until you are ready. If husband cares more about his mommy's opinion and feelings than he can be with her for the weeks she's visiting while you recover quietly elsewhere with your child. Hell, don't even tell them when you've gone into labor. NTA. Oh, honey, no. If your spineless husband won't stand up to your poor excuse of in-laws, will your mother? I would fight tooth and nail to keep any of that from happening if it were my daughter. Or can you take the kids and go stay with her? Next story. My brother is Vin, and he's married to my sister-in-law, Samantha. Vin's son is Hayden, and he's 11, and Samantha's daughter is Aria, and she's 5. When Hayden was 7 and Aria was 2, Vin and Samantha got married. Hayden's mom died when he was a baby, and Aria's dad does not appear to have ever been in her life. So around 5 months ago, Vin came and asked me if I could spend some time talking to Hayden and figure out why he seems so indifferent towards Aria. He said he and Samantha were concerned because Hayden didn't really pay any attention to her, and a lot of people believed Hayden was an only child, which they felt must have come from Hayden. I spoke to Hayden some. He was pretty talkative about it, actually. He told me he really didn't care much for Aria and that she wasn't his sister, and he didn't want her to be. I asked if there was any reason, and he said he just didn't. That Samantha isn't his mom and his dad isn't Aria's dad, so they weren't brother and sister. He also said he never really wanted his dad and Samantha to get married, and so he tried not to say much because he didn't want his dad to be angry with him. I helped him talk to Vin about what he told me. Once my involvement was more or less done, Samantha was informed by Vin. Hayden called and told me he hoped everything would be okay. I tried to assure him that it would be. A few weeks after I had spoken to Hayden and my brother, Samantha and Vin asked to speak to our family, me, sister, other brother, and parents, and they said that Hayden was rejecting Aria and not wanting to try and be family with her, and so they wanted us to start focusing only on Aria and leaving Hayden out so he could learn how cruel that is. None of us were okay with the idea, and Samantha spoke up and said that Hayden is older and has known Aria most of her life. She adores him. And he's indifferent to her and shows no kind of love, affection, or outright warmth to her, and she does not want that to continue. We all said we could not just ignore Hayden since he's a kid. They decided to focus on me after none of us agreed because I am closest to Hayden and they figure it would hurt him more if I were to leave him behind and pick Aria over him. I told him it was cruel what they wanted to do, and I accused them of wanting to make him feel totally isolated and alone, and asked them, had they thought about what that would do to Hayden? Samantha said Aria gets upset occasionally when Hayden won't play with her, and we don't seem to care about that. I told her we all care about Arya too, but they were asking adults to be a bully to a child. That not all siblings are close, and sometimes you just need to accept it and focus on their interests and friendships. She told me I was acting like they were monsters when they are trying to teach a child old enough to know and want to do better. AITA for accusing them like I did? NTA, your brother and sister in law are trying to force a relationship that is the worst way to blend a family. And I can't believe they had the audacity to try to manipulate you into cutting ties with your nephew to try and force that bond. What they are doing is completely unacceptable, and I think most of us would consider it abuse. You're not the a-hole, but I hope you and your family are cautious with how you handle the situation moving forward. I only say this because I want what is best for your nephew, and I'm genuinely concerned they'll try to cut ties with your family just to punish him. Is there any chance you could try to talk your brother into family counseling? Maybe a professional explaining to them why this is not okay might help? NTA, my God, they're awful. Awful people, and I'm guessing he's sensed this of them. You do not go about making him want to be part of the family this way. He needs to be given time to come to terms with how his life is now, and he will grow to love his extended family in his own time. Being forced and punished, and especially in this cruel way, will only make him hate them more and his own father to boot. I'm so glad you're advocating for this boy. I dread to think what they're doing behind closed doors. That poor soul. Next story. For a bit of context, my husband and I are both late 20s and we have 3 kids, all school age, youngest being 6. Both our youngest and middle child have ADHD, the middle child being pretty severe and the youngest having ODD on top of it. My husband also has ADHD. Giving this info so you can get a picture of how insane and chaotic my household can be. There's constant noise and destruction, most of which is accidental. We also have a hyper energy anxious dog and 2 cats who do zoomies all night. Moving on. I'm tired. I'm edging being touched out. My husband, who is very in tune to me, picks up on it almost immediately and instantly starts trying to make it easier on me. Telling me to leave and go get a break while he handles things, that sort of thing. However, with gas prices being what they are and me not wanting to waste money, I simply go out on my porch with a coffee and a book most often while he wrangles the kids inside. We live in the city, so when I'm on the porch, there's still a load of noise, but it's manageable. However, recently they converted the apartment building directly behind ours into an adult group home. Currently they have roughly 5 men living there, a few with autism, one with special ed needs, and one with severe social anxiety. I know all this because recently, if they see me on my porch, they all come out and start yelling across the way to speak to me. My husband often engages with them, but I'm getting fed the frick up. I want to relax, not engage in more conversation. However, I feel like a complete a-hole and usually speak to them because it's not their fault and I'm sure they are lonely. Well, last week, I was hanging clothes on the porch and the man with social anxiety immediately came out per usual. Starts trying to talk, and I'm being polite. I go back inside, wait till I see him go inside, and then go back out with my book. He comes right back out. I tell him I want to read, and he just keeps talking. I politely dismissed myself, and that afternoon went and bought a privacy sheet. I hung it up immediately following getting home and read my book in peace behind the sheet. My husband says it's being rude because they are just being friendly. And now he feels like an a-hole because of me being so dismissive and petty. AITA? Absolutely NTA, but your husband is. You don't have to engage with your neighbors just because they want to. You have every right to just have some quiet time. He can go off the porch and still engage with them all he wants. NTA, there's absolutely nothing wrong with making a space into a comfort zone for yourself this way. For a compromise, maybe leave the screen up for the times your husband is outside or you don't require some solitude. If the neighbors ask, you or your husband can kindly explain that some days are hard for you too and that you need quiet time. If the screen is down, it's one of those days. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.